G'day, doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's the podcast episode 21. Should be a smaller podcast this week. Going to focus on just a few little areas. So we've got the AGM coming up in February. So the CEO, Aaron Warburton, has sent out the letters to the voting members, and the board will be voted on next year in February. Now, reports have come out stating this, and factually suggested that there could be a rival emerge for the position of chairman. Not sure what will happen with the current board, whether people will continue on or vacate different seats or have other people vote in. But everyone will get to have their say, as they do in our club every couple of years, unless they call for that emergency orders to have a board voted on if things if people aren't happy. But look, I'll give my thoughts on that, and I'll give my thoughts on where I think we've done well and where we can improve. Then I'll look at our communication strategy and where that's improved but also continues to fail. I think that's an important thing to talk about, and how Canterbury can be number one in areas. That should be the aim, to be the best at everything they do, on and off the field. So that's something I'll have a look at as well. We've also got some signing news, some stuff on Karl Oloapu as well, with his condition. Not much on that, just going to report what I've heard and seen. And yes, and we've got the international coming up, which I haven't even named. I haven't got the team there or anything like that. It's the final should be a good game. So we'll talk about that quickly. Last week, Australia showed their class. I felt New Zealand forward pack was really, really strong. But Australia played to their strengths. They played a fast, up-tempo game, played through the middle, turned the Kiwis around constantly and forced them into errors, as they do, with the pressure that they applied, but they defended. There was a lot of work in the ethic. I thought Azeo was really strong. But the players across the board, from the halfback to the fullback into Tedesco and captain Flegler, I felt they served it up to him, and we've stood it pretty well. And Jakey Trbojevic, always as reliable as ever, just in there tackling his heart out. The use of Grant and Hunt worked well again. And the outside backs did their job. Like Australia was just a professional performance of players with a lot of X factor. I felt New Zealand looked threatening and looked dangerous at times. I felt Jerome Hughes' kicking game and organisation, probably someone that struggled to put together back-to-back games for a while. Too many injuries and that sort of stuff. He looked pretty fresh and nippy and good, but I just felt that some of the end of sets were really predictable, and there just wasn't obviously playing with belief that they could grind it out and get back into it. Probably looking at that style of play that has served the Warriors all season, that serves the Panthers, that sort of thing. And probably they probably played that they had that belief that they could run over the top of Australia at some point, but just didn't eventuate. And I just feel that the Aussies are going to be strengthened with the return of Payne Haas, with the return of Tino Fasua-Mawali, and I think that they're going to be very, very hard to beat. But look, my tipping isn't the best at the best of times. So I tipped the Kiwis. I thought they would get the job done last week, and that Australia would be very hard to beat in the final. But Australia, great professional performance, played with too much speed and flair, and the X Factor players really stood up and showed their class. So well done to the Aussies. Fiji, a big win over PNG as well, which I didn't expect. That young Donahue, the number 6 who plays for the Dolphins and is coming through, he looks like he's got a really good future. Some big boppers in there for Fiji that did a good job. They got a massive back line. They didn't have Taruva or Katoni Katoga. So they did a really good job, Fiji, and they'll be playing each other again this week, and I expect a much closer game. Good to see old Reece Martin playing again. But there's quite a bit of talent in that PNG side, and they got absolutely flogged on the scoreboard at least. So it'd be good to watch that game again. and then there'll be no footy for a while, which is going to suck. Have to watch the English Super League. I think they're finished as well. God, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, see what happens. Let's talk about it. The AGM's coming up in February. The last board, we've had John Curry involved in the club, and he was one of the survivors who took the chairman position from Lynn Anderson, who tried her best to get Canterbury out of a rut, rip some band-aids off, did some tough decisions that we've talked a lot about. In the end, they made a lot of decisions to try and bring hope to the club, which set us back even further and probably prolonged the pain. Obviously, John Curry and the like got amongst the voting members. He's done a lot of work off the field, shown a lot of passion for the club, got a lot of supporters in behind him who voted him in. Not all of those people are happy, and he would know that. But I would suggest that there's still a lot of faith in John Curry, and I believe that if he learns from mistakes, and learns from the people around him, that there'll be more better decisions made moving forward. And we'll continue to evolve and progress on this rebuild. I think it's very, very important that John Curry and the current board, if they wish to stay there, stay in the position for at least another 2 years. I think that they've done a great job commercially. You can't deny the membership numbers. I know the hype and the hope makes it more distressing when we fall out of contention and when things don't go the way we want them to go. But in saying that, it's very, very important. I know from as far when going to the games and seeing the engagement from the kids out there, they weren't embarrassed to support the Bulldogs. From what I could tell, there was so many people wearing blue and white more than ever. Just was great to see. It was great to be at the Belmore game and to be a part of that with Josh Reynolds Day. And look, I just think that they've done so many good things. There's been a bunch of good signings which get drowned out by the bad ones. When things go wrong, people focus on the negatives. It's just natural behaviour and been a common sort of thing with Canterbury supporters. They just released today the membership video. It actually came out today. Very, a lot of propaganda in there is probably a word you can use, but it's a membership drive. They're basically saying they want to, breed the next Bulldog. And it's all about, and I think that's a really good angle to take. They need to engage the kids, and I think there's a lot more they can do in that. And I'm going to talk about some ideas I've got in that space. I think they need to have apps. They need to use the technology that's out there. Canterbury has an opportunity to build something on their social online presence which presents a single source of truth for all supporters. So where you've got which branches into an app that the kids can use, which promotes rugby league, promotes how the game's played, promotes the fundamentals, that gives them training and drills that they can do at home. I'm sure there's all this stuff's at hand with coaches and that sort of stuff, but the club needs to be actively involved. I think they should have results. I think they should have footage. There should be people being able to show footage of the kids playing footy if they give permission for that and they're happy for that to happen. And it should be... and that would be for members who can access, have membership access, have reward systems in place, have membership referrals in place, a lot more interactivity, a lot more engagement. These are all things that they could do to employ 4 or 5 part-time or full-time people to get this stuff sorted would be a worthy investment. It's not like they're coming out and abusing referees after the match and copping $20,000 fines every second week. There's so many things that they could do, I believe, in that communication space. which is all about promoting their heroes. I think that the stuff that we see on the Facebook groups could all be made redundant if the Canterbury club itself could take ownership and be ahead of the game. There should be a calendar for every player that's worn the Canterbury Bankstown jersey from inception to where we are today, that's played first grade. So it should have their birth dates on that calendar, and every time that day comes up, there is an article which is written about, which has the statistics. They need to go source this information and find it and have a one-pager and a picture. There are people who dedicate hours every single day to doing this stuff for the fan base. It should be done by the club. And what it's about is understanding your culture and engaging people. Back in the day, this is the player that represented Canterbury. And without them doing what they did, we wouldn't have the team we've got and the club we've got to be a part of today. Not just in the good years either, all throughout the berries, through the ups and the downs, through the emergence of the Bulldogs, through the ups and the downs, through the Dogs of War. They should be engaging more on products that they could sell as well, coming up with concepts and ideas and providing surveys and encouraging people to take the survey by, having competitions, specific competitions. For me, they could be saying, okay, who would be interested in a legend series that focuses on the dogs, but the Dogs of War under Warren Ryan, where we release a bunch of different memorabilia or clothing lines, or mugs or different things, keychains, whatever it would be, a watch. It doesn't matter. They can look at all these things, and if people say, "Yep, I would buy that, and I'd pay $100 for that," and if that's a viable option, which could be done. And if they could then somehow use their membership to qualify for that, so people could, instead of getting that $50 voucher and then just buying what the club gives them as an option, they might be able to keep it as a credit there and use it later on towards an Anzac jersey or an Indigenous round jersey or something like that. There's ways that they could do it. I think they need to look at the cost effectiveness at the game. And look, we've got 22,500 members come through. I think there should be a countdown on the sites to show how many we've got at, in any 24-hour period, and just have that counting down and have incentives. If we can get to a certain amount of memberships, it means a discount across the board for the next year or something like that. Where the club's obviously made more money through its membership, through its engagement, puts more views in front of advertisers, it brings the community in together. There's so much that they could look at doing, and I'm sure they have people looking at it. But what it comes down to is are we going to go and invest money in something, and what's the return going to be? So I think if they invest in the applications that work properly, which aren't just all NRL formulated under the one banner, which actually go a bit above and beyond, where you have a junior app which engages the kids and has all their heroes in front of them, and special characters potentially. They could have storybooks, whatever, about the Fox. There's lots of stuff that they could do creatively. It's so easy. And just have those kids engaged, wanting to be a part of it. Now, I think that video that they did was sort of focused, targeting all levels of supporter base. But what we want is in 15 years' time, kids that grow up and there's no other team that they would ever consider playing for but the Bulldogs. None. They'd rather play in Ron Massey Cup or 5th Division, somewhere in the Bulldogs area, than go and try and get a chance at a game at the Dragons, for example. This is what Penrith have done really well. They've just got kids that aren't interested in going anywhere but playing for Penrith. As kids, that's their dream, to play in that team, to represent that club. And while the Bulldogs have that, we just don't have it in the same capacity. So this is what we want. And I think there's different levels that they can achieve that through. I'd be promoting all the junior results. I'd have every player that's currently playing for the club linked back to their areas and that sort of thing. So, for example, today it's the birthday of Joseph O'Neill. He's 19 years old, born in, Moorbank or whatever it is. I'm not sure where he's born. Plays for this school. This is what he loved doing. Here's a 30-second clip from Joey about his ambition with the Bulldogs, and and a highlights package. They should be doing this, and this is for every player. Promote every player, good and bad. If they've had a bad season the year before, don't hide from it either. For example, they might say Chris Patolo had a disappointing 23. Only managed to play 4 or 5 games. He's got a 1-year contract. These are some highlights that we saw from his juniors. That's the school he went to. This is some of his best performances. Here is his stats. And this is what we expect from him in 2024. There's just so much. They could just be making a single source of truth and essentially make all the pages, like All Things Bulldogs, make all this sort of stuff irrelevant. You'd only tune in to watch the podcast with Bill Woods, and there might be a podcast which just talks about all our results and everything like that, and it doesn't sort of dumb it down like the typical media. Talk about it. Yeah, talk about our strategy and where it failed. And explain to people what it means. Educate people more. See, this is the thing. When they want you to spend more money in society, this system that's been employed is to dumb people down so they buy more and accept more and consume more. But I think with rugby league, it's a game where, with all the fantasy stuff that's coming into it as well, which isn't 100% reality. You can have people who are really great at getting fantasy stats, but are actually not actually helping their team in the best way they can in some areas because of they're doing too much, if that makes sense. And it doesn't always mean that because they're a great fantasy performer that it translates on the field. Obviously, there's plenty of times where it does cross over. But it's a separate thing. You're looking at two different aspects. I think the education is a really good thing. Now, they did some videos earlier, a few years ago, where they were showing passing drills and all that sort of stuff. And it was going out to just sort of everyone. It was just released as a clip. I think these should be targeted at the kids through apps. And where you have a situation where and they should start, okay, we want to have so many kids get this app and download it. If they share it with their friends, and have enticement that way. Have membership referral programs, have reward programs. I'm not just talking about, buying your groceries at Woolworths under your Bulldogs card and getting 3% off. There's plenty of that sort of stuff. But more tie it back to actual Bulldog stuff. They could create specific items which they only have 5 or 10 of them available, and you can only win them through being a member and participating in having people join the club, and having referral programs. They should be thinking 50,000 members, not let's get it from 22 to 23. This year's target should be a soft and a hard target. The soft target, all right, we got to 22, we need to get to 25. But by 5 years' time, we need to be at 40 or 50. And how do we do that? It's through engagement of the current members. It's obviously getting a lot of things right as well is going to help with that sort of stuff. But when you look at the NFL in America, a much more boring game. Takes a long time, but when you watch it and you're invested in it, you feel the excitement and the pressure. But the fanfare at the games. Look, it's not even the NFL. It's not even the main gig. You're sitting there watching a high school team with 15, 16 and 17-year-olds playing for their high school. And the whole crowd, they've got everyone from the area there. Great-grandpa to grandpa to father to uncle. They're all there. There's 25,000 people you can't fit any of the away fans in. And the place is absolutely rocking. And it's just for a junior match. Rugby league needs to have those ideals, right? Now, I know they've got a lot more people over there, but they also have a lot of teams. And they do. It's just that those communities, they've been able to capture the heart and mind of their entire community. And that's what the Bulldogs have to do. I think Penrith have got a blueprint for that and have started doing that. The Bulldogs have definitely got, just going through the place, you see how much the club means to so many people. The Leagues club's packed on game day. You know, it's there. All the foundations are there. They've just got to reach everyone. And it's not just the local area as well. It's a national brand. It's a national, I was following the Bulldogs coming from Wagga Wagga. And I've followed them religiously since I was a little boy, since I was 4 years old. And probably before that, but just can't remember past then. And my brothers and sisters, they don't all go for the Bulldogs. My mum did, and I do. And my brother played, as I said, played a bit of footy with Peter and played for the school at Mount Austin and with the kid, with Chris and Peter and that sort of stuff. Definitely nowhere near as good as them, but he played all right, better than me. But what I'm saying is that the Bulldogs have a lot of reach across the world. There's hundreds of Bulldog supporters. I'd say there's probably 10 or 20,000 Bulldogs across the world outside of Australia and New Zealand. And I'd say outside of PNG as well. I think we've got thousands in Papua New Guinea. The Broncos do pretty well there, but there's lots of Bulldog supporters there as well. There's a lot of New Zealand supporters who support the Bulldogs as well as the Warriors. Same with the Gold Coast and Melbourne, but we just are a team that we've got great colours, we've got a great mascot, and the way our players played in the periods between 1980 to 2015, for the most part, was engaging for a lot of people and a lot of fans and a lot of kids sort of looking into the game. Oh, look at those big boys hit hard. Oh, wish I was that big. Wish I could hit that hard. Oh, look at the brilliance of this player. Oh, what a great kick by El Masri, You get the drift. There's so much that they can do to engage more. Now, I love what they did with the kennel, but then look at the consequence of that. You've got this great production, which inspired and captured the hearts and minds of the people. I felt there was only positives about it. And the guys, you could sense and feel that sense of passion and pride they had for the jersey, that they felt that they were coming together well, all these newbies coming in. As you go through it and you look back at it, you go, the undertones there is that there's, at the end of the day, there was people who were getting pushed further down the pecking order, and people who were a part of our future suddenly realising that they weren't a part of it or weren't going to be long term. And you go from watching that footage of Raymond Fatala-Mariner just, showing so much emotion, how much he loves the club, to him being a part of a scandal in leaving the club. But to me, there shouldn't be a fear of what could go wrong. They need to continue that sort of stuff. I felt that Bill Woods did a great job interviewing a whole bunch of people. I love watching the Mark Hughes episode, the stuff with Sherwin, with Gillespie. He talked really well. Paul Dunn. I loved it, man. It was really, really good. Paul Langmack. It's great to see him on there. yesterday's hero. Sorry if I forgot anyone, but there's a whole bunch of people on there, which was really good to see. A lot of good podcasts that are out there as well. I don't know if Jimmy Graham's podcast is getting funded by the Dogs. I'd say that the Bulldogs Unleashed was, and they need to continue that. The kennel episodes, I felt they did a pretty good job with the videos each week about the upcoming game. That sort of stuff is necessary. But instead of all these Facebook groups promoting that, there should be a single source of truth where this stuff comes on and you have all the members engaged and want to be on that group and don't want to be anywhere else, and where they can freely place their comments. Obviously, no foul language, anything like that. That basically the groups that just want to detract. It sort of goes two ways. You got groups that just want to give propaganda and sort of fit in with every direction of the club, and then you got the ones which, people say worse things to their enemies, or they say worse things about the players in the club than they do to the people they hate the most in their life. It's just tragic, some of the stuff that they say. But basically, the Facebook groups would be for those people, because you can't have a group where there's 250,000 people or 300,000 people, which is what you'd want, who are following the page and the group, and have them, freely commentating and saying disgusting things on there. There has to be some sort of constructive criticism is fine, but once you start slandering people and swearing, that shouldn't be on. But I think it's a bit of a piece of work. They need to find the right apps. As I said, you're probably looking at an investment of about $300,000 to $500,000 in this whole communications department. Get some more employees in there. But I think the payoff long term could be millions and millions and millions of dollars. I really do. And they do that by building trust in the fan base as well. Now, one of the big areas that they've failed in has been timely communication about players coming to the club, players leaving the club, and that sort of thing. I think they can be ahead of the game in that. I really do. There's no reason why Canterbury hierarchy, instead it shouldn't be coming from Phil Gould on Twitter. I'm sorry. Look, I think that's a bonus that he's on there, and if he wants to answer a question, sure. But I think the communications manager, there should be a daily briefing where they sit there, they advise, this is what's coming up today. We've got our fan focus on we've got these birthdays coming up for all these past players. We've got a memory of something great that happened this week 10 years ago that we want to focus on. We're going to focus on this player in the club. We focus on 3 players a week, 2 from our juniors, 1 from our senior team, something like that. Focus on 3 players a day, whatever it be. Okay. I think there's like 400 players that play across the club in all the different squads. So they could do 1 or 2 a day. And all the stuff that the supporter groups do on Facebook, they could be doing themselves, essentially. And then when there is if News Corp come out and James Hooper comes out and says he's been told by a source that Canterbury are chasing Tino for Saul Muali, Canterbury should just come out with a statement. Honestly, come out with a statement and say, at this stage, we are not. We haven't spoken to Tino for Saul Muali. He is not. He's currently contracted and it's not legal to talk to him at this time. He's a great player, and if he does become off contract and has an interest in leaving the Titans or anything like that, we'll be interested to talk to him. They could show their interest. They just be ahead of the game. If a player, it comes to the end of the season, so far our departing players are Jake Averillo, Luke Thompson. They've been confirmed. We're currently in discussions with player, A, B, C, D, E, and F. with that player and their manager to determine if there's a future at the Bulldogs. Those will be ongoing, and we will advise you once we know more. Make statements. I know these statements can be assumed. I do get that. We can just all safely assume that. But make the statement. If there's a player out there, for example, Mitchell Moses, don't speculate. Just because it's a media game and the media need it. What you want to do is force the media to tell more truth. They can still provide breaking stories if they're honest. They can still provide interesting talking points by having people, give their opinion and commentate on things. But when it comes to actual revealing information about potential outcomes, have them be honest about it. And the way you get honesty is have clubs be honest themselves. Canterbury Bankstown, just like to advise a report was made that we were chasing the signature of Jarome Luai. Jarome Luai is a quality player who's off contract. And as we continue to look to rebuild and improve our club, we look forward to seeing if there's an opportunity to speak to Jarome when he becomes a free agent on November 1. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It puts, if anything, it sets the fire off even more. It allows the media to sell more and talk more. It does that, but it just shows the fans as well. And then if the fans come out and say, we don't fucking want Jarome Luai, and you're sitting there and you've got the one single source of truth, you've got 40,000 people have interacted on that, and you do your marketing research, and the vast majority are saying, no, they don't want this player. Well, it might give you, as a management team, obviously the experts know more, and you want them to know more. And you want them to ignore fan sentiment at certain points. But sometimes, if you've got a player which they're saying we really want to keep them at the club, and the fans really want to keep them, just be honest about it. If you're not going to offer them a contract, or if you are, we're going to try and keep the player. We've got a certain amount we can spend in that area because we need to strengthen another area. They could have talked about that on the front foot with Jake Averillo. But most people know that Jake Averillo wasn't going to be staying at Canterbury for a very, very long time when he didn't play fullback to start the season. He's put to centre. I think if he went to fullback, he would have been worth a lot more to our club to retain. But they'd already gone and bought someone for that. So, look, he's gone to Wayne Bennett. I think that's a good result for him. So, there it is. I've talked about Jake Averillo again. Only took me 33 minutes. The Bulldogs, I just think they can be ahead of the game with a lot of stuff. They can come out as a club to the fans. If there was certain things that happen on the field, they can just come out with a statement. Canterbury, we understand the fans are very unhappy about certain things that happen in the game. We understand that not every decision will be right, even with the technology that's used. And we will be addressing these concerns in a private and respectable and constructive manner off the field. They could tell us that. They don't have to keep it quiet. And then we know that they're doing it. It may not change anything, but coming out and saying and copping a $20,000 fine usually doesn't achieve anything either. I know the media try to make out that certain coaches are able to put pressure on the opposition through things that they say and do. And I think that's something that Serrato could look at doing as well. But to me, he seems like the type of coach who's very just focused on what he's doing with his team and not worrying about other teams and what they're doing. They brought in Jason Taylor, who incidentally was someone who pointed some stuff out about the Dogs in 2012, which in ways we were scoring some tries, which they then started to crack down on and disallow some of those tries. So interestingly enough, he's now at the Dogs, and there's some people who haven't forgotten that. It just comes down to how do they show that they're representing us? If they communicate directly to us and constantly communicate, they could have players, coming on doing live chat sessions, formulate messenger groups on Instagram and on Facebook, and do lives through the sites where we talk to them and say things. And if people get on there and make a fool of themselves or do the wrong stuff or do nasty stuff, then they get banned and booted. And you have your protocols in place to be able to identify who these people are. People need to learn that they have to control themselves in these situations, and most people do, from my experience. As I said, there's so much that they could get from their fans. And instead of having 20,000 fans go to one page and another 20,000 to another and another 2,000 to another, they could all be going to the one place, getting all the information about the culture of the team, past and present. Happy birthdays to all these players. That they could have, special shout out to fans they could have competitions for fans that are, whether it be on a fantasy thing, whether it be based on stats. I know they tried the thing with the KFC and predicting stats, and they got points involved in that. I think that was a good idea. But in reality, the app wasn't that good, and it didn't really wasn't always, sending proper reminders and stuff like that. But that could all be part of that sort of thing, similar sort of stuff. I just think they really need to do more in the space of transparency. As long as it's not going to impact a player's discussion. Now, if the club hasn't told a player or a manager that they're potentially looking elsewhere, or they're in discussions or whatever, well, they shouldn't come and say anything, obviously. But the club needs to. I think one of the issues that they do face is that they have players there that may not get too many opportunities elsewhere, but may be essential to us if we can't get someone better into the squad. And it appears like that could be the case with some of these players, because nothing gets said. And then some signings happen, and then we find out they're gone, sort of thing. The club hasn't said anything about Franklin Pele officially, I don't think. Hasn't said goodbye to him. Nothing, no goodbyes to Declan Casey, I don't think, even though he did a beautiful Instagram post. See, this stuff should have all been covered by now. It's November 1 today. It hasn't been done. Which brings us to the chairman and that sort of stuff. There's some of the things I think they should focus on, as well as all the important, the academies in St. Paul's or in Auckland, the pathways in Bundaberg and Toowoomba and all that sort of stuff. Commercial sponsorships, commercial partnerships, getting people to pay, big money to be part of the commercial members, to bring more third-party payments into, so we can get more for our NRL side. I know they've done a lot of investment in pathways as well. But I think the communication space and the interaction through the online space is a huge potential and huge opportunity for the club, and for them to get ahead of the game, to almost go rogue a little bit, because it all seems to be sort of pretty, conditioned to the NRL website sort of links onto all the others. It's like they're doing the job for it, but I don't think they do a good enough job. I think they need to create their own apps, have their own employees. And the other thing as well, and this is an idea that I think would be fantastic, is to have a dedicated commentary and camera crews that film and commentate on every junior game, on the Ron Massey Cup games, on the Jersey Flag games, on the Harold Matts games, SG Ball, New South Wales Cup, and that they broadcast. The only time that they don't do these games is if they're being done by Foxtel or Channel 9. But even so, I would probably still have them do that coverage as well, for the simple point that sometimes if it may show on New South Wales Channel 9, but not on Queensland Channel 9, because they'll get the Queensland Cup version, which really sucks, even through the online app. So that's an issue. So to me, to have one or two people who just commentate on the Canterbury games, have a couple of cameras angles, I don't know, something would be better than nothing. And what it does is enables them to, and that could be something that's only accessed by members of the club. So with your membership, you get full digital access to all this stuff, to seeing every game and that sort of thing. There's different ways that they could do it. It gives an opportunity to bring someone in who can commentate games, who wants to do that as a career. I think it's a good career for people to commentate, and there's not enough people out there doing it. It's another way to keep ex-players involved, but it's a real opportunity to see what the kids are doing as well. And isn't that a great thing as well? If you've got kids from that local community of where that player's from, gets to watch that kid live from potentially from New Zealand. They might be in New Zealand watching their cousin play in under 21s, because they can access it through the membership, and they're a member purely because they want to be able to follow that. There's just different ways that they could do this stuff, and I'm just not sure how many ideas are in the pot of the melting pot to come up with this. But I'd like to hear other people's ideas as well. We've talked about it for a good chunk of time, longer than I thought I would, but you know me. And there you go. All right, so a lot of work to do on that space. I think that the current board have done a good job in many areas, especially commercially. I think the recruitment and retention needs work. I think communication around recruitment and retention, recruitment and retention, and transparency of fans they need to be more ahead of the game with that, and show that these players, whether they're staying or leaving the club, staying with or leaving, are valued. And while I'm sure they 100% do value them, and some of them weren't liked by a lot of the fan base, it doesn't matter. They need to come out and be ahead of the game on that. They just haven't been. For Drew Hutchinson and Turpin to be announced, and for them not to be announced by our club, if they're coming to our club, at least say we are in negotiations with these players still. Things are yet to be finalised. We will advise once it's done. Just be open about it. What's wrong with that? Is there some legal implication for that? Somebody let me know. You've got the other part to it as well. Our fans, there are rivals emerging, I think, for this current AGM. I think they're putting their head up to show that they're there. And if things don't improve quickly, especially in the NRL, it's all going to be about wins next year. Win more games and lose less games. Lose more honourably. Less blowouts. better performances across the board, you expect to get it flogged a couple of times, like it happens. And that's not being mediocre or expecting that. It's just the reality of where we are. But while there's was so many excuses for last year, and I've probably made more excuses for the team and the club than anyone else. There just comes a point where you've got to say, well, the rivals are going to come and take advantage of that. I think if we were to vote our board out now, it puts a real, I think it could put us back another 4 or 5 years in our development to get where we want to go to. And I agree with Phil Gould on the fact that you don't want to be in this position again. So they could be in a situation where they do a couple of things which gets us back into the 8, back competing for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden we're back to square one. We don't want that. We want a situation where we're constantly building towards that. We went for a period there of 6 wins in 2 years. The last 2 years we've had 14 wins, which is it's twice as many, more than twice. It's 2.5 times as many, 133% more, something like that. If we grow that again, how many wins do we have over the next 2 years? Hopefully something like 30. Maybe 12 this year, 14 the following year. Well, you know what I'm saying. It's what we need to address. If we don't start to get some of these wins happening and get some of these players and retain the players that by all appearances are what we need in our club, and recruit players that are going to add to that, the best of their ability to get results that we need, the board and the chairman and the administration will hopefully be able to keep secure in their roles and keep delivering and moving forward. But if we replace them now, I think it really puts that rebuild in jeopardy and could set us back. So I hope that there's no big scandals or nothing bad happens between now and then. I hope that we get a couple of more good positive signings. We can all look forward to the team we're supporting in 2024. Have that hope there again, because that hope's essential. Have big membership numbers again, bigger and better crowds to the games, more interactive, more interaction with the fans and the players and that sort of stuff. And better results. So that way they can keep building and doing what they're doing to get better and better and better and better. But I think the rival's going to emerge, and basically so there'll be a face, there'll be some familiarity there, that if things don't improve quickly, they're going to be sort of knocking at the door to say, let me in, I want to try and run things differently. I've heard some names, but I won't repeat them. But I think that there's only a certain few people that I would entertain as doing a better job at the moment, and I'm not sure if those people are interested at this point. But who knows? They may not be any good at it. But it all just comes down to thought and opinion. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. We've had a big chat about it. I think there's lots of opportunities there in recruitment and retention. There's lots of opportunities in our communication strategy around all of that, our interaction with the kids, our interaction with social media, and creating a single source of truth from the club, which takes care of all of that. And they need someone to be able to do that and present numbers. The marketing information you get from your online stuff is phenomenal. And that's how you engage advertisers and sponsors, because you can sit there and say, the same way the media companies do it. And in turn, by creating by being more transparent and open, in some cases you create more headlines, which again produces more exposure for your sponsors, if that makes sense. Not just Channel 9 doing 100 stories on the Bulldogs and News Corp saying how disappointing the Bulldogs are all the time. the common threads. It's just the same old, same old. It's like an election every 3 years. It's the same old, same old. Red versus blue. They need to change it up, mix it up, change the game, change the way things are being done, and do it to their own advantage and to the advantage of the fans. Not just have a propaganda machine, but an actual interactive place where we're all a club, we're all important, we're all a part of this legacy together, and through the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're going to push on and we celebrate who we are every single day. That's what I want to see. I want to see the club with 50,000 members, not 22,000. I want to see the stadium packed every time that they play, whether we're winning or losing. I want to see them come up with things at the games that are unique to, even the Broncos, they have the World Championship dart song playing every time they score. It's so annoying. However it fucking goes. And their horse does a lap of the fucking field. That stuff, just the fans love it. And it brings people to the game, brings atmosphere. The Bulldogs need to do that. There needs to be a catch cry at the games. I suggested a couple of things to them. Howling like a wolf. Like the Viking Club. That's a thing that initially the Raiders fans brought in, and it just brings atmosphere to the game. And the Viking horn. They need to do more of that. That's what we want to see. More interaction that way. Anyway, I've talked a lot. I don't remember if I talked about Garivi Warwick from the Cowboys, a 19-year-old. He's coming across the Dogs apparently. Same age as Joash Papali'i and all the like. So he adds depth in that area, and he's a very good player, Queensland rep. Obviously, he may have played with when Karl Oloapu was playing for the Queensland rep sides. He was in Hastings Dairies last year. He could be a good talent for us. I think Joash Papali'i has a lot of talent. He could play in fullback, 5'8", many capacities for him. I think just the more spine players they bring to our club, whether juniors or not, it doesn't matter. It's going to drive those kids to work harder and do better. And look, there'll be ones which have just all the talent in the world that don't make it, and there'll be ones that we miss out on that'll go somewhere else and be a success. They'll make a mistake. They always do. But they'll get some right. And you've got more and more players there, more in that bottleneck, more people fighting for those, jostling for spots. You've got a situation where you've got fans divided about 2 or 3 different players, which are the next big thing. You're in a good position because it means that there's an abundance of talent there. And that's what you want. That's what you want. And then you get the player ends up turning out to be that long-term generational player, representative player who holds their spot for a decade. And that's what you want as well, where the juniors can't even get a crack because of someone so good in your side. It's about how you manage that long-term and manage those players long-term. And I think Canterbury just hasn't been in that position for a long time, and that's where we're aiming to be. That's where we want to go. Anyway, that's my thoughts. More signings to come, more stuff to talk about. But thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for all the kind comments and interaction. Loving it. Still having a good time talking about the Bulldogs with my fellow Bulldogs mates. Take care and see you next week.